After my girlfriend broke up with me because she found a file named Hooker's Deepest Yet, I came to a realization. Hendon Hooker is an incredibly frustrating quarterback to evaluate. But it's a different kind of frustrating from what you'd expect. It's not really because he does anything specifically wrong, but it's more because of uncertainty. Although I do suck at scouting, the reason for not knowing with Hooker is different. It's because of Josh Heupel's Tennessee offense. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a beautiful thesis statement. So let's get into the reasons why his college offense makes it impossible to evaluate Hooker. Let's start with a very watered down explanation of the offense. First of all, a football field is generally 160 feet wide, but Tennessee doesn't fucking care. To them, it's only 80. Many reads in this offense only require the quarterback to read half the field. So much so that the receivers on the other side of the field that are not being read are very literally just jogging casually.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
When the play begins, Hooker appears to have the option of choosing between two guys. When I watch the tape, the thing that immediately stands out is that every read seems predetermined, and the ball is thrown to that predetermined read unless the cornerback is really sticky, like me after accidentally putting an S in my Google search for Hooker. Little film watching tip. To see where the quarterback is looking, look at the stripe of their helmet. If you look at the stripe of his helmet, you can see plays all over Hooker's tape where he refuses to move his eyes off his main target for the entirety of the snap. In regard to the receivers, the calling card of this offense is the deep choice route. During this route, a receiver has three options. They'll either run a go route, which a receiver runs if the cornerback is breaking downhill or is even with the receiver. They'll run a post, which the receiver will run if the corner is playing with outside leverage and there isn't safety help. Or they can run a curl if the corner bails out to cover the deep ball. You also probably noticed that the receivers are split out insanely wide, outside the numbers. The idea of this is to spread out the defense and create tons of space for yards after the catch. This offense is actually incredibly electric for Tennessee and is no doubt a fantastic college system. In fact, the Tennessee offense ranked second in the nation before Hendon Hooker sustained an ACL injury that ultimately ended his season. Now, when you're evaluating quarterbacks, you're generally looking for a lot of things, but let's go over the ones that are most relevant to this video. First, you have pre-snap processing, which is the ability to identify matchups pre-snap. The second is post-snap processing, which is the ability to adjust your original reads based off the defense. Then you have the ability to run through progressions, which is the ability to run through the different receiver options and identify quickly whether the ball should be thrown to that receiver. It's important to distinguish quarterbacks here who look but don't see. Those types of quarterbacks are physically looking at the direction of the receiver but not actually identifying or analyzing anything when looking at them. Next, you have point and shoot ability, which is the hand-eye coordination needed to see and throw immediately without hesitation. Lastly, and probably the most important, is anticipation. It's the ability to anticipate where your receiver will be and put the ball in the spot so that it arrives at the exact right time to put the receiver in the best position to catch the ball. Anticipation is kind of a mix of knowing the route concept and reading the defender's leverage to determine if your receiver will gain adequate separation. Of course, there's much more like accuracy and ball placement, pocket presence, arm strength, but let's just focus on the things listed above for a moment. The reason why Tennessee's offense makes Hendon Hooker's evaluation so frustrating is that it basically says fuck that to every single thing on that list. All the predetermined throws take away the need for pre-snap and post-snap processing, because you already know where the ball is going. It also takes away the necessity to read progressions, because once again, you already know where the ball is going. From a field reading standpoint, Hooker has really no reason to ever point and shoot and doesn't demonstrate the ability to do it. His checklist for every play is basically 1, are you throwing to the first read, yes or no? 2, if no, or you're under pressure, just run immediately. Hooker doesn't show the ability to evade pressure in the pocket and reset and throw, which leads to a lot of missed opportunities. In fact, he only completed 5 passes when moved off his original dropback spot by pressure, per PFF. This ties back to his ability to read the field because he practically just doesn't. If he doesn't go to his first read, he doesn't throw the ball, and he has no experience throwing the ball because he doesn't throw it if he's not throwing it to his first read. So he has no experience really pointing and shooting down the field or looking for open guys and trying to make a play. He's not really much of a creator because of this. He's really more just looking to execute the play as designed, and if there's nothing there, he just runs immediately. That won't work in the NFL. But I believe if he had more experience and was actually able to read the field and was allowed to move off of his predetermined read, he would be more comfortable resetting and throwing and actually making plays outside of the pocket and making plays when they're not there for him. Going to the most important thing, which is anticipation, this offense does not allow him to throw with anticipation at all, because he has no way of knowing what the receiver will run due to the deep choice concept. Outside of intangibles, the extremely wide spacing of the offense means that there are rarely any throws over the middle. If you look at his heat map, you'll see that he rarely ever throws over the middle and is only throwing down the sidelines. That's because all of the route concepts are sideline routes and the receivers line up extremely wide split, so he doesn't have a lot of experience throwing over the middle of the field. The middle of the field is where you'll primarily work as an NFL quarterback, and there are just not a lot of throws on tape from Hooker that demonstrate an ability to layer throws in between levels of defenders. This goes back to the main point. There's not a lot of throws that show this. There's not a lot of throws that show anticipation. There's not a lot of throws that show that he has great ball placement. There's not a lot of throws that show manipulating defenders with his eyes. There's not a lot of throws to the middle of the field. There's not a lot of throws where he resets and throws. There's just not a lot of experience doing literally any of the things that he probably needs to be an NFL quarterback. But why is this so frustrating? The frustrating part to me is that I can't say for sure Hooker cannot do this, or this is a problem for Hooker, or Hooker can do this. I have to simply say I don't know if he can. There's film on other prospects that definitively shows that they can or cannot do something consistently, but that is simply not the case here. There's nothing to say that Hooker won't come into an NFL camp, sit for a year, and develop all these skills quickly because he's some prodigy at the quarterback position and just hasn't been given a chance to do them. In fact, it's even possible he does. Everything I've heard about him indicates he's an extremely hard worker with an incredible mindset and work ethic. Someone who I've heard the same thing about that's risen from a second-round quarterback to one of the top quarterbacks in the league is Jalen Hurts. So for all we know, Hooker could be on that level of quarterback someday. But for every Jalen Hurts, there's also a Davis Webb or a Luke Falk. That's why it's so frustrating, it's the uncertainty. Anyways, I think I've said the word Hooker far too much for today. Let me know what you guys think below.